We all know that it is not easy to transform the school and academic culture so as to ground education in life, in real life, so as to live education as a process of life itself, grounded in the socio-ecological realities of our world. We know that the current politics of formal education maintain a huge gap between schooling and the different non-formal and informal contexts where rooted, strategic and meaningful learning can occur. Too often, school stands as an island, offshore, where youths remain waiting for their future real life, learning things that will be useful later, okay? The question we share is, how can school invite and accompany children and youth to take part in the current eco-social transformation movement, not as future citizens, but as full actors here and now in their community? How to value their creative forces and respond to their quest of meaning and their desire for action. Hello. How to enhance the role of teachers as cultural workers, following Henry Giroud's expression. Teachers that would contribute to the major cultural shift our societies need. This roundtable invites us to examine rationales and strategies that could enhance the contribution of the rich theoretical and practical pedagogical heritage of environmental education, from the construction of an ecological identity towards eco-citizenship. So as to contextualize my contribution in this roundtable, I would say some words about our research center in the University of Québec in Montréal, and it is named Centre de recherche en éducation relative à l'environnement et éco-citoyenneté. Alors, our research center is interdisciplinary, is inter-universitary, but also is grounded in an important partnership of diverse institutions and organizations of our educational society in Quebec. Actually, we are around 101 members of this research center. Of course, our main activity is to stimulate, coordinate, and celebrate environmental education research. And amongst these activities, as my colleague said, we publish an international research journal since '98, which also is published online, Éducation relative à l'environnement. We also develop pedagogical resources available also online, and we offer services to accompany environmental education projects in different formal and non-formal contexts. The center supports our environmental education postgraduate short program offered on campus and online. This program has been created in '96, 20 years ago, and still goes on. It's a professional development program for in-service teachers and also for educators from different non-formal contexts. The diversity of the participants helps creating relationships and partnerships between different actors, institutions, organizations of our educational society. Our center, the members of our center also contribute to the development of teaching of to the development and teaching of 3 other courses. One, as part of our pre-service K-12 teacher education program. It's an optional program since 2 years, brand new course. And the second one is part of our pre-service high school teacher education program, mainly science education teachers. It is also an optional course since 2 years. And finally, a brand new course in a new master degree short program in outdoor practices entitled Environmental Education in Outdoor Context. Finally, we have developed a partnership structure with a nucleus of 15 institutions and organizations. I think perhaps in some kind of same way as you did with Deeper, with the work you did, specialized in environmental education. And we wish to reactivate our work, our collective work, towards a better recognition and institutionalization of environmental education. So we will be very much interested in the work that will be shared during this Canadian strategic meeting. In our university, we work with the concept of éducation relative à l'environnement, which my colleague Paul Hart very well translated with the expression environment-related education. And this expression, it corresponds to environmental education encompassing all types of education concerned with our human relation with the environment, concerned with any aspect of the web of relationships between persons, societies, and environment. It includes, as you know, and as it was presented, nature education, conservation, place-based environmental health, eco-justice education, education for sustainability, and others. Each one of these fields being concerned with a particular aspect of our relationship with the environment. As education and environment are 2 socially constructed fields, deeply culturally, ethically, and politically constructed, environmental education or environment-related education can be interpreted through many diverse theoretical frameworks and can be enacted in an impressive diversity of pedagogical approaches and strategies. I would like to share with you some elements of our vision of environmental education that underlies our research and teaching. Environmental education is not a thematic education amongst many others. Environmental education is a core dimension of basic education. It is more specifically centered on one of the 3 interaction spheres at the basis of personal and social development. The core sphere is the one of relationship with ourselves, learning to be, learning to learn, learning to connect with the world, while constructing the multiple aspects of our identity. And closely connected to the first one, the core sphere, is the sphere of relationship with other humans, developing human alterité through democracy, interculturalité, peace, justice, cooperation, and other social issues. And the third sphere, closely, very closely interconnected with the two others, is the one of our relationship with oikos, with our common home, with this living environment where our humanity is connected to the more human world. Unfortunately, this third sphere of interaction has never been really or adequately considered in educational systems. So education remains uncompleted. In this interaction sphere, we have to consider first ecological education. The idea is to recognize that we are embodied beings, that our lives are situated, contextualized. We need to nurture connections with the real world. And yesterday, Nicole Bell, where is Nicole? Nicole Bell wonderfully developed this aspect. We need to define our human ecological niche in relation with all the niches composing the local and global ecosystems we belong to. We need to learn to fulfill this function adequately in a responsible way. In relation with this ecological dimension of environmental education, this third sphere also calls upon economic education. The aim here is to learn how to collectively use and share our common home and its resources with care and solidarité. Here, one of the diverse reference frameworks that could be inspiring it could be the one of the politico-economic international prescription of sustainable development. But it may be also alternative frameworks like eco-development, like the transition movement, the degrowth movements, the indigenous vivir bien or buen vivir community-based economy, as in Ecuador, in Bolivia, in Peru. It may be other proposals. It's not necessary to refer to sustainable development. There are many other proposals to inspire our economic relation to the environment, to interpret the economic dimension of our relation to the environment. In this third sphere is also included ecosophic education, in order to clarify one's own cosmology, one's own personal and cultural vision of the world, including our most immediate reality, and to build a coherent ethics, which implies, among other things, rethinking the contextual significance of responsibility, justice, equity, solidarité, sustainability, and other socio-ecological values. Finally, in this third sphere of relationships, it is important to consider eco-citizenship education, which corresponds to the political dimension of environmental education. Our common home, oikos, is also our city. City in the meaning of the ancient Greeks, who used the word polis for city. Police being the root of the word politics. We know that the city is this democratic place which needs to be inclusive, where free and autonomous humans take decisions together about things that affect them all. Police, the city, is the one of the school, of the workshop, of the neighborhood, of the village, of the town, the country, the international community. Citizens have to learn to live together in their city. Eco-citizenship gives a specific meaning to the city, that of our oikos. The ecological city is not restricted to our human community, it includes the whole community of life. We live in very hard times, as you know. In the context of current governance, centered on political and economic alliances, and often backed by a complacent or incoherent legislative system, it is up to civil society, it is up to us all to assume the difficult and very demanding role of becoming a critical vigil. Vigil, is it a word? No? To be observers, critical observers, witnesses, that's it. Well, vigil, it's one of my creative words. For fighting against or for projects, programs, or policies that affect our lives, places, territories. We know that the ecological argument, the one for the preservation of the integrity of the ecosystems, as well as the argument of the common goods related to health, security, autodetermination, and others, seems to have very few importance for policymakers, if only when they are upheld by popular discontent, requests, and claims. Citizen mobilization is more than ever necessary for whistleblowing, for raising debates, for contributing to problem solving, for protecting ecosystems and human health, for reclaiming socio-ecological equity, for environmental justice. And at the same time, citizen mobilization is required for contributing to eco-social innovation and transformation. For example, in the fields of food, health, transport, energy, housing, and all others. For sure, these reactive or proactive contributions to eco-social transformation call for the involvement of all the different actors of our educational society, including school, of course, as a main actor, a school well-rooted in its community in a constructive, collaborative dynamics. So, in relation with the ontological dimension of environmental education, with the construction of an ecological identity, and in relation with the many other dimensions of environmental education, in particular the critical and ethical dimensions, the political dimension of environmental education is more than ever necessary. Politics, you know, politics, says Shaya Heller, is what simply happens when people gather to discuss together issues that concern them all. So, taking care of our commons. It happens in school, in neighborhood, in larger communities. Concretely, it means learning to critically manage information and communication, to question, to discuss, to debate, to deal with the diversity of arguments, to create, to propose solutions. It means learning to work together. Now, if teachers, in relation with their important social role, should be concerned by these critical, ethical, and political dimensions of environmental education, what about children? Are they concerned with these aspects of environmental education? Of course, this question opens up a huge discussion, and of course, we will not have time for that now. But I would like only to point at two works on this topic. First, this wonderful book from Brownwyn Hayward, Children, Citizenship and the Environment. The author says, it's not a matter of teaching political science to children, of course, but to offer children the possibility to take consciousness of his, her place and role in the collective life, and to experiment active democratic processes. She explains that children need to recognize that ecological problems are closely linked to problems of violence, poverty, injustice, inequity. Our role is to invite them to talk about their daily living, to clarify their reality, and to experiment and understand how ordinary people, like their parents, their teachers, their neighbors, their friends, themselves, can act together in free collaboration to achieve extraordinary changes right here in our living places. She says we need to support young citizens as they discover the art, craft, and passion of active ecological citizenship. And also this other book, someone has already read or knows this book, okay? It's an impressive book of 652 pages, okay? Those are Canadian authors, Larry Benz and Steve Aslop. They have mobilized 43 science education specialists to explore the interest of activism in science and technology education, including environmental education, as a contribution to social transformation. They say, well, the opposite of activism is immobilism. With this proposition, the student is considered as the subject of change and not an object of change, as a political subject learning through political action, and thus developing an individual and collective proactive attitude. And the teacher plays the role of a cultural facilitator that must clarify and justify constantly his, her own postures. And here, in relation with critical thinking, the search for meaning remains essential. Well, considering these diverse perspectives and considering the diversity of existing theoretical and practical currents in environmental education, it would be important to invite pre-service teachers to explore this diversity. And not only the Bible of international prescriptions, or no, to open up to this diversity, so as to inspire their pedagogical choices and enrich their reflexive practice. And here I would cite the excellent document produced by Hilary Inwood and Susan Jagger about environment and colleagues about environmental education in Ontario. And most elements of this document could be transferred in other provinces, and I'm very happy to know it has been translated. It is being translated in France. So Uh, the author says, reflecting on the assumptions, values, and ethics that underlie our approaches to environmental teaching and learning, it is an important way of ensuring that we are engaged in ongoing examination of the foundations that support the work we do as educators. And of course, such an examination should include a critical reflection on the language we use, the words we use. Words are molds of thinking. And finally, exploring the diversity of our educational field, we can observe three complementary perspectives that can be adopted in environmental education. And these three perspectives are really, really closely complementary. First, of course, we can mention an environmental or socio-ecological perspective centered on the contribution of environmental education to protect and enhance the quality of the environment in relation with the quality of human populations, quality of living of human populations. Here we find, amongst others, the issues of environmental health, ecological justice, socio-ecological equity, and others. But more fundamentally, there is here a psychosocial perspective centered on the contribution of environmental education to enhance the quality of being of persons and social groups in relation with their environment. We find here, for example, issues of constructing an ecological identity, including an eco-political identity. And as a support to these two first perspectives, a pedagogical perspective in environmental education is centered on the quality of teaching processes so as stimulate learning towards the eco-social transformation we need in our societies. These processes call for interdisciplinarité, knowledge dialogue, knowledge mobilization, and transversalité through disciplines and through pedagogical projects. Is transversalité a word in English? Transversality? Cross-disciplinary? Transdisciplinary? Well, I'll finish with these ideas. Concerning transversalité, I will use this word. The actual Quebec education program already includes many possibilities for cross-curricular pedagogy and for connecting school to real life. The program is centered on the main goal of accompanying children to construct their own worldview. The children's worldview is at the center of the program. And I would say, in a parenthesis is a word, okay, that it is important not to enclose this vision in any specific cultural, ethical, and political vision would it be promoted by any international organizations. The Quebec education program proposes the development of such a worldview at the center of the educational program, and it should be constructed through different broad subject areas, broad areas of learning, and cross-curricular competencies. While those are cross-curricular competencies you are used with, intellectual, methodological, personal, and social, and communication-related competencies, and also with these broad areas of learning, including environment environmental education, which is called environmental awareness. Of course, we think it's regrettable to see that environmental education is here reduced to awareness and is mainly associated with the issue of consumption in the explicit perspective of sustainable development, without inviting children or teachers to explore other ways of relating to the world. But still, the program would allow for the inclusion of a more holistic environmental education. And many teachers have yet experientially learned to reread the program and reinterpret it, so as to introduce a full environmental dimension in their pedagogical work. But this remains personal initiatives, fortunately encouraged by structuring supports from some school boards and teacher unions. And this could be the object of an entire other speech. Well, even if the formal program in Quebec is centered on the construction of a vision of the world, and it has a strong cross-curricular dimension, there is a lack of formal teacher education, not only in environmental education, but more generally concerning transversality, concerning the possible cross-curricular niches allowing to develop a contemporary education rooted in real life, not only for children and youth, but with them as full actors of their community and of their learning journey. So the collective work we will develop this week is important as ever, and I would say more than ever. We need to share our reflections and strategies so as to enhance environmental education in teacher education. And now, yesterday night, I was looking back on the title of my presentation, and I said that I thought that it was really too ambitious. I'm very conscious that I only outlined some aspects of these issues, but perhaps it's a way to open some windows for some discussion these days. Well, I thank you very much for your patience with my accents, my creative language, and your attention.